Many African American women were involved in the Civil War. They had different types of jobs, such as camp workers, organizers, activists, nurses, and some were even spies or soldiers. But no women were allowed to fight in the Civil War. Yet women disguised themselves by using loose clothing, several shirts, and pants. They also cut their hair really short and rubbed dirt on their skin so they could be men. The jobs that many African American women had in the Civil War was being spies, scouts, prison guards, cooks, nurses, and soldiers. A very famous Civil War nurse was Harriet Tubman. She was the brave woman who led several of slaves to freedom by using the Underground Railroad. Harriet Tubman was a healing nurse who also used healing herbs and roots for the soldiers during the war. She moved around several times from camp to camp to heal soldiers. Another very important American woman who was African American was Susie King Taylor. She was a nurse, cook, and laundress during the Civil War. She was raised as a slave on an island near Georgia. Susie started a school for African American children and soldiers. During, before, and after the war, she was a generous woman who put her heart out to many soldiers. With more African American women being in the war, playing big roles and small roles, there were more positions filled and less women and people with no jobs during the Civil War. So therefore, African American women in the Civil War were very helpful and helped the war survive.
During the Civil War times, there was no such thing as a nurse to come and take care of you in a big fancy hospital. If you were to get injured in any way, there wasn't an ambulance to come bring you to the hospital. Approximately 2,000 women from North and South served as volunteer nurses, but they weren't called nurses. They were called the angels of the battlefield. They would run out in the fields and snatch up the wounded, and then they would bring them back to the safe sites. Then they would contact their relatives and inform them of what had occurred. Two major women that had an important part of the nursing in the Civil War was Clara Barton and Dorothea Dix. Clara Barton was appalled on how the Union Army was supplying their troops and the care for the wounded. She set up an agency to the local visiting soldiers, which led her to the founding of the American Red Cross. Dorothea Dix already made a career of improving the care of mentally ill people. She convinced many state legislatures to provide money to move the ill people from the prisons and institutes into a state-funded faculties for provisions of the expanded care. The U.S. Sanitary Commissions was under the leadership of Dorothea Dix. She was chosen to be the superintendent of the Union Army of Nurses. Her requirements in the nurses was to be not too young, not too pretty, and to be over 20 years old.
In 1863, Jenny Wade was only 20 years old. Jenny was a resident of Gettysburg. So, during the Civil War, when the Battle of Gettysburg came to be, all the civilians fled to their basements for cover, but not Jenny. In the line of fire, she baked bread, nursed, sent info, supplies, and cleaned uniforms for the Union Army. She wanted nothing more than to help the Union cause in any way she could. That was her mission. However, she was killed, and was the only civilian killed in that battle. But her bravery was far greater than anyone else in Gettysburg, and was greater than any soldier who fought there.